Hey, what's up, guys? It's Timothy here, representing from the 6th grade classroom. Having a great time today. It's Friday. Going to go out and play F&M. I think that makes it 2 weeks until Kaladesh comes out, so super stoked for that. Looking at spoilers for today, there are about 2 or 3 cards that I saw last night or this morning, but the rest of them are going to be fresh for me as well, so we'll go ahead and get my initial opinion on those. Starting with this card, it's called Night Owl. And it's I don't think that's going to be the actual translation, but working name, Night Owl. 2 double black for an enchantment that says it enters the battlefield with 7 time counters on it. At the beginning of your draw step, you draw 1 additional card and remove 2 time counters from it. Your maximum hand size is equal to the number of time counters on it, and whenever you discard a card, you lose a life. So I'm going to be straightforward. I think this card is really bad, like excessively bad. So it's got a lot of text. It's kind of confusing to work out exactly how it works, but it comes in with the 7 counters, meaning that your hand size is still 7. Each time you get to a draw step, you get an extra card on your draw step, but then you remove 2 of the time counters. So your initial hand, or your maximum hand size, keeps decreasing unless you have a way to put counters on this, which doesn't seem super likely. There is that proliferate kind of card. So once your next draw phase comes after playing this card, your hand size becomes 5. You remove 2 time counters at a time with this. You draw an additional card, but now your maximum hand size is 5. The following turn, you draw an additional card, but now your hand size is 3, and then it just goes down from there until you're out of time counters, with your hand size essentially being 0. So is this useful? And then you also have that other mode. Remember, when your hand size starts decreasing, you're going to be probably pushed into discarding. Like once your hand size gets to 0, you're going to have to discard. If you draw double lands for a turn, you're going to have to discard one of them, and then you start losing life. Not to mention, like, any sort of effect that makes you discard cards loses life for you. So there's a lot of negatives here, and it essentially boils down to draw an extra card every turn, which is a good effect, but it's only going to be super beneficial for about 2 or 3 turns. I guess you get to the point where you are drawing 2 cards per turn, and if you can cast them both, it seems pretty sweet, but not being able to hold cards in hand is not something that a lot of decks want, especially black decks, which have a lot of instant speed things, Grasp of Darknesses and stuff like that, Murders, so on and so forth. So you want to be able to hold cards in your hand, and if you're playing a long, drawn-out game, this just isn't going to do it for you. Where I could see it being potentially useful is in decks that are trying to capitalize on cards like Lupine Prototype, or any sort of madness-related discard outlet or something like that, simply because you're probably going to be able to empty out those 2 cards in hand per turn very, very quickly. The problem is it's a 4-mana enchantment, which is already against the nature of what those decks really want to do, and it doesn't do anything right away either. I think this card's awful. In draft, it's pretty bad. And the last thing I'll say about it, because I noticed in the comments someone mentioned it, is like, you can gift this to somebody with Harmless Offering, which seems cute. Like, once it gets down to 0, you gift it to them, and then now their hand size is 0 and yours is back up to normal. So I guess that's a possibility, but still doesn't really justify playing 2 bad cards in your deck just to make your opponent's game plan worse. Not really what I'm into. Moving on to a common here, Arielgatherer is 2 and a white for an instant. I guess that can't be the name. Like, that just doesn't even make sense. But an instant that exiles target creature you control, then returns it to the battlefield under its owner's control, and you draw a card. So a fixed version of Cloud Shift, so to speak. Is Cloud Shift down here? To battlefield under your control. Yeah, so I was just double checking. Cloud Shift is like the messed up kind of blinking, where if you take control of someone's permanent and then you blink it, you still have control of it permanently now. This one returns it under its owner's control, but it's essentially a Cloud Shift with a cantrip tacked onto it. I really like blink effects. So cards like Essence Flux and Displace and Long Road Home, or Long Journey Home, or whatever it's called, those cards from the Shadows over Innistrad block, I like those cards more than most people do because they're very versatile. They let you get repeated ETB triggers, which this set has a lot of. Kaladesh does. They let you do other stuff. They let you blank removal spells and things like that. They let you get rid of a pacifism type enchantment. So they have utility, and then I think this one's actually good because you can draw a card off of it. It's never going to be dead, so I like it. I wouldn't go hard on them in draft unless I'm playing like nothing but creatures with enter the battlefield triggers, but it's interesting. Makes for a decent common. Moving right along, we have another rare here, Dubious Challenge. This is a rare sorcerer and a neat kind of ability on it. Look at the top 10 cards of your library, exile up to 2 target creatures, exile up to 2 creature cards from among them, then shuffle your library. The target opponent may choose one of the cards you exiled. Remember, it's face down, so they don't get to see them. Or do they get to see them? Top 10, exile up to 2 target creature cards, and shuffle your library. Target opponent, oh, they do get to see them, okay. It does not say exile them face down. Target opponent may choose one of the exiled cards and put it onto the battlefield under his or her control. Put the rest onto the battlefield under your control. So, very interesting. Essentially, you're looking at the top 10 for 2 creatures. Your opponent gets 1, you get 1. Your opponent gets to choose first, though, which is the problem with this card and makes it probably very close to unplayable in limited formats or even standard. There's not really like a straightforward way to cheat on this and make sure that you get the better card. So if you're like, if you're playing, I don't know, like, this is a bad example because it would never play it, but if you're playing like a Primeval Titan deck, like, and you show them Primeval Titan and Soccer Tribe Elder, like, they're going to take the Primeval Titan, you're going to get the Soccer Tribe Elder. So I don't know. Phage the Untouchable comes to mind here, but I don't really know how you would maneuver it so that Phage is not the creature you get, but I don't know. Do they have to choose? Your opponent doesn't have to choose either, so it's not like you just reveal one creature and they have to take Phage the Untouchable. But where I do see this being useful is in Commander, where you have effects like Homeward Path, where you can actually give your opponent a creature and then use Homeward Path to steal back control of it and essentially get a 2-for-1 off of this. Or any kind of red-green deck, maybe like Rasheen or I don't know, what are the red-green, like Mael, that have access to things like Gruul Charm. Gruul Charm, one of the modes on it lets you take control of all permanents you own, so that lets you get a 2-for-1 off of this as well. But in Limited, this card's just a little bit too wonky. I don't want to give my opponent things. Like, the fact that they get to pick first is really unappealing to me. Like, neat design, but I'm not loving it. All right, so we're into new cards now, cards I haven't seen yet. Starting with Cloudblazer, 3 white and a blue for a 2/2 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you may gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. Wow, that's really strong. So I was about to knock the 2/2 flyer for 5, but that's a really strong enter the battlefield trigger. And I just mentioned, like, this set has some good enter the battlefield triggers in addition to ways to like abuse them with Panharmonicon and a couple blink cards in the form of the instant we just saw and the 6 mana uncommon angel that blinks something when it comes in. This is a very, very good ability to blink, and it does get you damage in there. Like, a 2/2 flyer is not great for 5 mana, but when it's coming tacked onto an ability like that, it's fantastic. Drawing 2 cards is really, really strong of this. This has got to be a high pick. It's essentially Mulldrifter, like, without the evoke. It's Mulldrifter that gains you life. That's exactly what it is, except it costs white mana and doesn't have evoke. So, all right, we get to play with Mulldrifter again. I love Mulldrifter. I think everybody does. It's fantastic. Unlicensed Disintegration. What a name. All right, 1 black and red for an uncommon instant. Destroy target creature. If you control an artifact, Unlicensed Disintegration deals 3 damage to that creature's controller. Wow, that is really strong for a draft uncommon. Does this have potential in Standard? It might, if artifacts are prevalent enough. Like, this is really strong for a limited card. Essentially, destroy target creature is good. I would definitely first pick this out of a weaker pack with a poor rare. And, you know, even though it's a gold color card, like, it's very, very strong. Destroy target creature. And then if you have an artifact, it also bolts the opponent. That's really powerful. I don't really know that there's actually that much to say about it other than how strong it actually is. But easily first pickable in my opinion. Just unconditional removal for 3 mana, like splashable too. Not maybe the best splash, but it is the type of card that I would splash for if I was playing like, I don't know, black, white or something. I would try to find a way to get red in for that card. It seems really powerful. More vehicles. I like the vehicles. Smugglers Chopper. What a name. These names are great. Alright, 2 mana for a rare flying vehicle. Whenever Smugglers Chopper attacks or blocks, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Crew 1. Crew 1's pretty neat here. So you're essentially getting a 3/3 flyer for 2, but it requires you to tap down another creature in order to attack. And whenever it attacks or blocks, you may draw a card. That's like a good looter. It doesn't need to get in there. It doesn't need to deal damage in order for you to loot, and it is a May ability, so this is the type of card I would definitely start crewing as early as possible so I can sculpt a really good hand off of it. This is very strong, I think. Another way to look at these vehicles, and I might have to plug that in here in a second. Another way to look at these vehicles is just like artifacts that say something along the lines of like, here's an example. This card here. Imagine if this was not a vehicle and it was just an ordinary artifact that said tap a creature, deal 3 damage to target opponent, and you may draw and discard. Like, that would be a perfectly playable, awesome artifact. And that's essentially what these cards are. You're tapping down your other resources to get some sort of effect and a lot of damage in. This one has flying, so I really, really like it, and it's super cheap. I'm going to go ahead and plug in my computer. And I'm back looking at Welding Sparks 2, and I read for a common instant, Welding Sparks deals X damage to target creature, where X is 3 plus the number of artifacts you control. Awesome. This is good. I literally just read it, and it struck me as good. And the reason is, like, it scales with more artifacts, but 3 damage to deal, or 3 mana to deal 3 damage to target creature at instant speed is still good. This does not hit players. Obviously, it seems like it could get really out of control if it did, but this is just good removal. Why does red have such good removal in this set? Like, we've already seen tons of cards like this. The Incendiary Sabotage, I believe its name was, dealing 3 to all creatures. The Harness and Lightning, dealing potentially 3 or more. And then we literally just saw that black-red card that blows up a creature, something Disintegration. But red has some really strong removal in this set. It's reminded me of Theros, where half of red's cards were removal spells. But it also, I just want to point out, like, number 3 seems to be the lucky number there. So, like, 4 toughness and above creatures might have a much better time in this format if all of the common and uncommon red removal spells are dealing 3 or less damage. So, just something to kind of, like, pick your brain there. No pun intended on pick the brain. Fragmentize is next up. Fragmentize is 1 white for a common sorcery. Destroy target artifact or enchantment with converted mana cost 4 or less. Don't we already have Natural State? Destroy target artifact or enchantment with converted mana cost 3 or less. Alright. Okay, I see. So Natural State is an instant. Fragmentize is a sorcery. This could be modern playable. Like, this is a very good enchant or disenchant effect. Obviously, being sorcery speed makes it a little less appealing, but this kills every artifact or enchantment you want in modern. Granted, at sorcery speed, the only one that comes to mind that it can't hit is Batterskull and maybe Battle Wits. I don't know, I'm stretching. But this blows up pretty much everything in a color that has, you know, decent removal for it already. I think if you're playing something like Stony Silence for things like Affinity, you don't need a card like this. But the fact that this exists is really, really, like, good. Natural State has seen a tiny little bit of play in Modern. It's almost at the point where it's like the go-to artifact enchantment removal spell for green. If you're just looking for targeted removal. And I can see Fragmentize making waves here. It's just super efficient. Like, I can't think of a card right now off the top of my head that this doesn't destroy if you're in the market for naturalized type effects. So, I don't know. It seems good. It seems good. Alright, and is this the last card? I think this is the last one. Underhanded Designs. 1 in a black for an uncommon enchantment with some pretty neat art. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, each opponent loses a life and you gain 1 life. 1 in a black, sacrifice Underhanded Designs, destroy target creature, activate this ability only if you control 2 or more artifacts. Wow, this is really good too. It does require you to build around it a little bit. You do need to have like a decent amount of artifacts before this becomes playable, let alone just really, really good. If you're just playing 2 artifacts in your deck, like this gets much, much worse. But especially in limited, you can draft around this, just go really, really hard in the artifacts and take advantage of it. The one thing I have noticed here is that a lot of the artifacts aren't artifact creatures, and you can't just bog your deck down with like nothing but puzzle knots. So vehicles are probably the way to go here to maximize on this. If there do happen to be other artifact creatures that aren't vehicles, and you know, I'm kind of discounting like the Gear Hulks because they're mythics, but if there's like a small amount of artifact creatures that aren't vehicles, which there are a couple but not many so far, then this card gets a lot better. And it just has a drain ability on it too, which is super, super sweet. But destroy target creature if you have 2 or more artifacts is really, really powerful, and it doesn't ask you to like pay any life or anything like that, discard any cards or anything. It's just straight up 2 mana, kill a thing if you have 2 or more artifacts. And it's not like they can kill the artifact in response because you've already activated the ability. So this seems super sweet. I like build-arounds, and this one doesn't really ask you to do too much other than take the best artifact out of every pack. So yeah, that's pretty sweet. I think that covers all of it so far. It is currently like 2:15 on the East Coast here, so there could be plenty more spoilers by the time I leave my school for the day. But anyway, I just wanted to knock that out because I'll be out all night and playing F&M, and I probably won't do any more spoiler videos until the weekend or maybe even Monday. But anyway, couple cool cards, couple cards I think are pretty bad, but I hope you guys enjoy the videos. Would love to hear your opinions on a couple of these cards. I think they're pretty sweet. What can I do with Dubious Challenge? Like, how do I build around that and make it work to my advantage? Let me know, because I'm super curious. Anyway, my name's Timothy. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.